I'm Jane.
And I'm John.
And we're Bucket List Travellers.
And today we're taking you on a walking tour of Carcassonne, France.
Our Carcassonne walking tour starts at Place Gambetta. So this is a square that's been around since the 1800s. It has two beautiful rows of trees, which were actually the only trees left after Germany occupied this city in the Second World War and demolished most of this square. So this square has been rebuilt since the liberation of the city from the Germans, and it was named after a French lawyer and Republican politician who is known as the founder of the Third Republic.
And his name was Leon Gambetta. So moving on from the square Gambetta, we're going to take you across to the castle town, and we're going to go across the road bridge. Now, the reason why we're going to walk across this bridge is that we believe it gives you a greater view of the castle town and the old bridge, which is directly ahead of us looking towards the town.
We're going across Pont Neuf, which is the new bridge, and the old bridge that you can see is called Pont Vieux, which just means old bridge.
So the old bridge is just a walking bridge, so there's no traffic over the other one. So we highly recommend you go over that bridge as well. But if you want to get the best shots of both the castle town and the old bridge and the old river, which we're walking across right now, then this spot is the best location. See, look at this, just it looks so pretty.
Yeah, so Carcassonne is a beautiful town. It's the home of two UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So the historic fortified city of Carcassonne, which you can see ahead of us, as well as the Canal du Midi, which is a canal which we will show you later in this walking tour.
We're just taking you now to the bottom of the castle town. So outside the castle walls is another part of Carcassonne, which is a really nice area. And there's a number of cool little restaurants and cafes that we recommend you check out.
So one cafe which we highly recommend is Le Petite Cuillère, which means the little spoon. And we had some really good hot chocolate here. It was only €3. It was so thick and so delicious and great on a cold winter's day.
Yeah, they also sell some really nice pastries called viennoiserie.
Yeah, so viennoiserie just means pastry. So it's a category of pastries which includes croissants, pain au chocolat, and those kind of snail-shaped pastries, which are all really delicious and really good to have with a hot drink, a coffee or a hot chocolate.
Little combos.
Yeah, little combos as well.
Carcassonne is located in the Occitanie region of southern France. Carcassonne is one of France's top tourist destinations, with over 3 million visitors a year.
Yeah, and there's good reason why that is. It is such a beautiful city, even outside of the medieval town. It's just got so many charming little streets, lots of cafes and restaurants, plenty of Michelin guide restaurants as well. And we're going to show you one on this walking tour as well. So that will be coming up shortly in the medieval town.
Yeah, and we visited two of these restaurants while we were here. So there's one in the castle town, which we'll take you to a little bit later on in this tour. And there was also La Table de Franck Poutelet,
which is a 2 Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah, so that was a really fancy and fun experience. And we even got to meet the chef. We're now just moving forward to the base of the castle town. And right in front of us, you see here is Église Saint-Gimier.
This was designed by the very famous French architect Viollet-le-Duc, who was the same architect that restored many prominent medieval landmarks in France, including the historic fortified city of Carcassonne and the Notre Dame in Paris.
Yeah, he also had a hand in engineering the Statue of Liberty in New York.
I think he selected the metal and did a lot of other bits and pieces of the design. So a very prominent architect from the 1800s.
Église Saint-Gimier is a Gothic-style church, and its construction lasted for 10 years in the 1850s.
Yeah, so from 1849 to 1859. Quite a long period of time, but definitely worth it. It's one of the jewels of the city.
Okay, now we're going to be walking up the hill towards the castle town.
So it is quite a steep walk up, but you get beautiful views of the city walls.
The Carcassonne Castle town is an example of a Cathar castle. Cathars, or Catharism, was a Christian or Gnostic movement between the 12th and 14th centuries. So it was a branch of Catholicism, and the main difference between the Cathars and the Catholics was that the Cathars believed in two gods. There was a good God, the God of the New Testament, and the bad God, the God of the Old Testament.
The one that had all the wrath and the floods.
And the fury and all that stuff. And the analogy was that he was effectively the Satan figure. But these were both two equal and opposite gods, which was at odds to the Catholic Church.
And the Cathars were actually persecuted by the Catholics, weren't they?
Yes, so sadly they were all wiped out in a series of crusades in the 1200s and 1300s. And their only legacy these days are all the beautiful castle ruins that are scattered throughout southern France. We're now at the Porte de Lourdes. One of the first things that strikes you are these concentric circles that you can see emanating out from the doorway.
So this is actually an art installation that was put there in 2018 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the fortified city of Carcassonne being UNESCO Heritage listed. The concentric circles can only really be seen as circles from this direction, and that's called an anamorphic illusion, which is pretty cool.
I think it looks really cool. And at the time, the circles were in bright yellow.
Yeah, so there was aluminium foil that was put on the castle as part of the art installation. I don't think residents liked it. And it was supposed to not leave a mark when it was pulled down, but as you can see, the circle pattern is still there.
It is still very much there. Now, I do like the look of it. I think it's quite cool.
Very unique.
But then I guess purists would probably beg to differ. What do you think? Let us know in the comments.
So as we mentioned, we entered the city of Carcassonne from the Porte de Lourdes, and it's named that because it faces the Aude River.
So as you can see, the door and surrounding is very typically medieval in appearance. And fun fact, this served as a backdrop for many film shoots, including Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
It was also the inspiration for the board game Carcassonne, which we've played many times.
Yes, we are game nerds and proud of it. And funnily enough, we'd first heard of Carcassonne through the game. What you'll find when you're inside is that there are heaps of little shops, there's even accommodation. It's just this fairy tale medieval town that you would dream of. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, so it does attract a lot of tourists, especially from within Europe, but we found it was pretty empty when we were here. We were here in winter and on a weekday, so it does get very packed on weekends, but as you can see, there's hardly anyone here.
It is still a bit of a steep walk at this stage as you're walking up the ramp towards the town area, but if you do look over the ramparts, you will get some amazing views of the lower town of Carcassonne. It's really pretty.
Yeah, and there are 3 rivers that run through the city of Carcassonne. So you can see the Aude River below. You can see a plain there. This town is serviced by an airport. France has so many airports. So there's also airports in like Toulouse and a few other places a short drive away. So it's really easy to get here. We got here by train, but there's also buses, or you can drive, you can cycle if you're really keen. Plenty of transport options.
The city of Carcassonne has had a long and rich history. So the area that we're walking on now has been occupied since the 6th century BC.
Yeah, it was actually a Roman city before becoming a medieval city.
The fortified city dates back as far as 485 AD, when the Visigoths built the first inner rampart.
And then the city continued to be built up around that over the next 1,000 years.
Yeah, and it wasn't until the surrounding province was annexed to France in 1659 that Carcassonne ceased to be a frontier fortress and
it fell into ruin.
Yeah, it fell into ruin.
And so it wasn't until 1800s that Viollet-le-Duc came along and repaired the city and restored it to the glory that we see today.
And now we're walking into the castle town.
Now, this is the largest walled city in Europe. And as we mentioned previously, it was restored by French architect Viollet-le-Duc in the 1800s. So it's really fascinating being able to walk through streets that have been around for over a millennia and just think about what it would have been like back in the day and how much it's changed since then, what stayed the same. It'd be really interesting to think of what people who actually did live here would think of the city as it is now.
So in terms of people who do live here currently, there are around 1,000 inhabitants in this castle town.
Oh, that actually live there full time.
Yeah.
And so there's a hotel as well. As we've said, there's lots of little shops, so you can go souvenir shopping. There's restaurants and cafes.
There's even Airbnb accommodation.
So the historic fortified city of Carcassonne has been UNESCO heritage listed since 1997, and it is a beautiful city. So it's free to enter the main part of the city, but to get into the Chateau Comtal, which is the medieval castle within the city of Carcassonne, there is an entry fee to enter that area.
And the entrance to the Chateau Comtal is right here. So the entry fee for adults is €9.50. Now, if you're an EU citizen and between the ages of 18 to 25, then it's free. And it's also free for all children under the age of 18.
If you do go into that section, you can climb up on the ramparts and look around. It's apparently really nice. We didn't go there ourselves, but we hear good things. So the Chateau Comtal is a Cathar castle, and it dates back to the early 1100s. In 1209, it was attacked in the Crusades against the Cathars.
And you can see a really good view of the castle from this vantage point.
So now we're going to take you to the Michelin Guide restaurant. It's a Michelin plate restaurant, which is one of the categories of the Michelin Guide, and it's called Camp Roger. It is a French fine dining restaurant which serves up local cuisine, and it serves both lunch and dinner. It has a beautiful contemporary indoor dining space. It also has an outdoor terrace, which I think was closed at lunchtime when we were there.
Yeah, it was a little bit cold to be eating outside when we were there.
Yeah, but they've got really delicious food.
And you can see it off to our left right now.
You can expect to pay around 10 to 20 euro for starters, around 20 to 30 for mains, and 8 to 10 for dessert. And so if you get a window seat, you can get some nice views out onto the castle walls.
We thought the prices were really reasonable for a Michelin restaurant, especially at lunchtime.
Yeah, and if you want to get a really traditional local dish, they do cassoulet, which is very famous throughout this area.
And just walking through this area, you'll see a lot of artisan shops. On our left here, you've got a truffle shop, which was really cool.
Yeah, they do free samples as well, which is very nice, and did convince us to get some of their truffle products. Very delicious. Truffles are very popular in France, so make sure you check that out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What do we have? It was
Parmesan.
Truffle-flavoured Parmesan cheese. Oh,
Yeah, very nice. Nice to have
beautiful.
on crusty white bread.
Yeah, and we even used it inside pastas as well. Oh, it was very delicious. So this church that you see in front of us is the Basilica Saint-Nazaire.
Yeah, so it's a Roman Catholic minor basilica, which is located in the citadel of Carcassonne, and it is in the Gothic Romanesque style. Outside you can see some gargoyles guarding the doors, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and inside it just looks so beautiful. It's just right out of a
Fairy tale.
And right out of a fairy tale. Are there churches in fairy tales? I don't know. It was just a really beautifully designed church. The stained glass windows were really pretty. It just had a really serene feeling to it as well.
Yeah, so again, one of the buildings that was restored by the architect Viollet-le-Duc.
The original church that this basilica was built upon was thought to have been constructed in the 6th century. Around the end of the 13th century, the church was reconstructed in the current Gothic style. We're walking around the basilica now, and if you look up, you can see those gargoyles that Jay was referring to earlier. They look pretty cool.
I really like all the finishing touches that they've added to this basilica. Yeah, very decorative. If you are thinking of coming to Carcassonne, it is very good to do as a day trip, and a lot of people do that. We stayed for a week actually, and we found a really nice Airbnb. They've got plenty of different accommodation options to suit various budgets, lots of hotels, some really fancy hotels as well.
So if you're looking for a one-bedroom apartment, the prices will be around €40 and up, depending on your preferences. There's plenty of accommodation options given how popular Carcassonne is as a city to visit, so you shouldn't have too many problems in finding accommodation.
Yeah, so in addition to Airbnbs, there's lots of hotels around. Yeah, some really nice ones as well.
Yeah.
So most people stay probably a night at best, but we do recommend if you like a slower pace of travel, this is a lovely place to spend more time in.
Yeah, for sure. If you are in a rush, you can walk through the castle town in probably half an hour. We highly recommend that you spend a couple of hours just soaking it all up, visiting the different shops and looking at the various museums and exhibitions that are on show. We have plenty of walking tours like this on our YouTube channel, as well as travel tips, food guides, travel guides. If you like this sort of content, then make sure you subscribe.
Okay, we're going to take you towards the Porte Narbonnaise, or the Narbonne Gate. It was built around 1280, and its name is due to its orientation towards the city of Narbonne, which is not too far from here. This is the main gate which leads you into the fortified city of Carcassonne, and it includes two enormous spur-shaped towers. It was reconstructed by the architect Viollet-le-Duc, and he restored the slate roof, and he also added a drawbridge which was not in the original design.
Yeah, but it really adds to the overall look, I think, so it's a good choice.
Yeah, definitely. And near the Porte Narbonnaise, you can see a statue, which is the bust of Madame Carcasse, or Lady Carcasse, and she was one of the prominent historical figures in the Carcassonne region.
So Lady Carcasse is more of a legend rather than a historical figure. However, the story is really fascinating. The legend goes that the fortified city was under siege by Charlemagne. This siege had lasted for a number of years, 5 to 6 years, and the fort city was running out of supplies, and Lady Carcasse was quite the wily character, and once her husband had died as part of the siege, she had taken over responsibility for the town, and she was very clever with what she did. For example, she placed straw mannequins dressed as soldiers along the ramparts to make out that there were more.
It was a bit of like a Home Alone situation.
Yeah, she went full Home Alone style and was firing crossbow shots at the besieging army. As I said before, there was famine, food was becoming increasingly scarce, and it got to the point where there was only one pig left in the city and only a small amount of wheat to feed the population. So, in an act of bravery or desperation, Lady Carcasse got the pig stuffed with the rest of the wheat and just threw it from top of the rampart on the ground in front of the sieging army. So, the pig, on hitting the ground, just burst, exploded with all the wheat flowing out. And faced with this scene, Charlemagne immediately lifted the siege.
Yeah, so he thought that they must have so much food if they're willing to waste a pig like that. But really it was their last pig, so power move for her. That was very clever. And the name Carcassonne actually means carcass sounds. And it's to do with the ringing of the town horn that announced the good news to the surrounding area that the siege was lifted.
So whilst it's a really cool story, this legend was most likely to be inspired by songs of medieval stories. It is false because Charlemagne never besieged Carcassonne.
We're on the other side of the Ord River, and to the left you can see Brasserie Four Seasons, which is another Michelin guide restaurant, and it is also by the chef Frank Poutelet, who did the 2-star restaurant that we went to. Now we're going through Portail de Jacobin, which is the entrance to the Bastide Saint-Louis section of the city of Carcassonne.
So if you do have some time to spare, we highly recommend you go to the lower town of Carcassonne just to explore the area, go to some really nice cafes, restaurants, get a baguette at a boulangerie. There's a lot of things to look at.
So this part of town has a lot of nice little shops and restaurants and cafes. It's got a few nice open squares. It's got a lot of museums and galleries. So lots of things to do. If you do need your food shopping, there are a few convenience stores and smaller supermarkets, as well as a few greengrocers and boulangeries and that sort of thing. Got pretty much everything you could need.
So this area of Carcassonne is also fortified, and as you can recall, we went through one of the gates of the walls, and the original walls were built between 1355 and 1359.
We're taking you towards one of the major town squares, which is Place Carnot, and it is in the heart of the city. It's been a meeting point in the city since medieval times, and it is the host of open-air fruit and vegetable markets a few times a week. There was actually a Christmas market there that was just closing up when we got here. So that looks like a really good thing to do if you happen to be in Carcassonne around Christmas time.
As you can see in our walking tour, the best way to see Carcassonne is to go walking. There are other ways of getting around Carcassonne which are also pretty easy. You can hire share bikes.
Yeah, you can find them outside the train station in Carcassonne.
Yeah, you really don't need public transport in getting around Carcassonne. You would only use a bus or maybe a train to go to another town in the area.
Yeah, and the supermarkets, the major supermarkets, are about a half-hour walk away. So some people might drive to those.
Yeah, so we're talking about a Lidl or Aldi. And there are a lot of sections of both the lower town and the castle town that are inaccessible to cars.
So if you want to do this walking tour yourself, we do have all the details of this self-guided walking tour of Carcassonne on our website, which is jjbucketlisttravelers.com.
The Place Carnot is a really great place to just sit out, drinking your coffee and doing a bit of people watching. There are cafes all around the corners of this square. This area typifies the leisurely southern France town lifestyle. The history of this square is very rich and a little bit dark at times. The square's been around since the 1300s, and the square in its current dimensions date all the way back to 1355. In 1792, during the French Revolution, this square was used as a public execution site. So Joan the Black was guillotined here with 2 of her accomplices. 2 years later, there was a vicar who was also executed here.
And for a great value lunch special, we recommend you look out for the plate du jour or the menu du jour. So you'll get 2 or 3 courses for around 15 to 20 euro.
We're coming out to the other side of the town now, and we're approaching the Canal du Midi and the train station of Carcassonne.
Yeah, so the Canal du Midi is the second UNESCO World Heritage listed site in Carcassonne, and it is a canal. It goes for 360 kilometres, and it links the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. And it's got 328 structures all the way along it. So locks, aqueducts, bridges, tunnels. And to go through Greater Carcassonne, there is a series of 17 locks that you need to pass through in order to get to the town. So it does force you to take a bit of a leisurely boat ride, because you do have to wait to go through each lock to get to the next section of the river. But it's a lovely thing to do and very interesting to watch. And it's been UNESCO World Heritage listed since 1996.
So you just walk over the bridge over the Canal du Midi to get to the train station of Carcassonne, which we have right in front of us now.
And that is known as Gare du Carcassonne, which just means Carcassonne train station. We hope you enjoyed this walking tour of Carcassonne, and if you did, then please give it a like and leave us a comment. We are Bucket List Travellers.
See you next time.